Welcome to What's a Beautiful Life Anyway? I'm your host, Jill Bennett. This is the channel that shares ideas to help you live your best life, because life can be beautiful if you live consciously. Welcome to this week's edition of What's a Beautiful Life Anyway. Karen Darke is one of the most beautiful souls I know and who I'm honoured to call a friend. And she's my guest on today's episode. Welcome, Karen.
Oh, bless you, Jill. Thank you.
Oh, it's
We've been
so lovely
doing this
to
for
have
a
you.
while. Finally, we're here.
I know. We have been planning this for ages, haven't we? Let me tell everyone a little bit about you. So Karen started her working life as a geologist in the Bolivian Andes. Exciting. How did I not get an exciting career like this? Researching gold. But a life-changing accident left her paralysed from the chest down. And so she moved away from being a rock doctor to exploring both outside and within. And Karen loves to discover and to find ways to align your mind, body, and spirit to do extraordinary things. And Karen's done plenty of them. She's done things like skiing across ice caps, kayaking at extreme latitudes of the planet, and handcycling the world's biggest mountain ranges and longest rivers. And we can't have Karen on without mentioning that she's also a Paralympian and won a silver in 2012 in London and a gold in Rio in 2016. Yeah, 20. I was trying to add my fours up. Today I could talk to Karen for hours about all sorts of things because there's so many things we have in common. But today we're talking about Karen's next adventure. Karen, what are you launching on Wednesday?
So this is a project which is a long time in the making. It's been maybe in my mind and in my heart for about a decade. So it's the pole of possibility. I had this idea to create a new sort of symbol of possibility for all of us. What we can do when we align our mind and our heart, and we get a great group of people together, and we just kind of overcome some of the difficult stuff that we can get stuck in, and what we can actually do both individually and collectively when we do that. So this is a point in Antarctica. And it's in a very random, not a random place, a very special place where nobody has ever been and possibly never will. It's the intersection of 79 degrees south with 79 degrees latitude and longitude in Antarctica. So we're going to this point to create the pole of possibility. Yeah, there's a team of 3 of us. It's a very small team. Myself, I obviously can't walk, so I'm trying out some new technology, a sit ski and a special all-terrain hand bike with huge big fat wheels on it. And I'm going with a friend who's a professor of environmental geography. So we're doing some research into the value of nature, and with a filmmaker to help capture the story and our insights and ideas around all of these topics. We're talking about creating more ICE. So ICE stands for inner gold, connection, and enabling environment. Really encouraging everybody to think about how they could do that for themselves.
Amazing. And we'll go into those in a bit more detail in a minute, because to live your best and most beautiful life, you need to know this possibility, don't you? And you need to get in touch with your own inner gold. We know that no one can make us happy. We really have to rely on ourselves. We have to dig within if we're not happy. And you're such an amazing example of that, Karen. But before we move on, tell us, how could people join in on Wednesday?
There is a link on Eventbrite to register at. So if people go to Eventbrite and search for the pole of possibility, hopefully they would find it, and maybe you can put a link in the show notes as well.
Yeah.
So it's 4 p.m. on Wednesday, the 16th of November. It'll just be an hour online. And we just want to encourage as many people from all corners and areas of life to be there, just to have their thinking provoked, maybe enjoy listening to some interesting speakers. We've got speakers talking to these topics of inner gold, connection, and environment. And then our professor talking about Antarctica and some of the really special things about this continent and its fragility, and obviously the impact that we all need to start thinking about in terms of our own impact on the planet. And so not just living with more kind of inner gold inside of us, but in those environments around us, and really appreciating each other, appreciating nature, and looking after all of these things.
Yeah, it's very, very important, isn't it? And I also want to say here, I will of course put a link in the show notes, but I will also put a link to your fundraising page. So if anyone can dig deep, even if it's £5, please, please, please get on that fundraising page and make a donation to this amazing expedition.
Thank you so much, Jill. That's really kind of you. And the fundraising is going towards making the film. So well, actually, it's helping our filmmaker be there and be with us and telling the story. And then if there are some excess funds, they'll be used to create the film, because what's really important to us is sharing this journey with other people. We feel really privileged to get to be going to Antarctica. It's such a fragile and remote place. Obviously, not everybody wants to go there because it's quite extreme as well. But I think there's so much we will discover there and explore together that it feels really important to share it with other people.
Yeah, it's so exciting, isn't it? I mean, could I go? Yeah, possibly. I'd love the adventure of it, I think. I'm not. How long are you going to be there for?
We're away in total for about a month, so in Antarctica for around 3.5 weeks. It's
Okay.
not that long actually, and we have quite a lot of distance to cover. It's around 150 kilometers each direction to the pole of possibility. So to get there and back, we have 300 kilometers to do. So there won't be too much hanging around. We'll have a day or two when we get there just to finalize our packing, decide exactly what we're taking with us, and then begin. So
It's so exciting. It's so exciting. But you're absolutely right about all the factors that are so important. Looking after environment. We all see the film all the time of the ice caps melting and no homes for beautiful creatures like polar bears and penguins. So it's such an important thing that you're doing.
and particularly the area we're going to, the western ice shelf of Antarctica, is probably the part of the world that could have the most impact on the rest of the world. With the seas warming, the western ice cap is at a kind of tipping point. So it's likely that we've maybe gone too far already and that point will tip, but that will mean that global sea rise will be up to about 10 meters when that tipping point arrives. So it's been a big decision to even go to Antarctica. It's like really weighing up the impact of that. We will be carbon negative in our approach, but it's also just such a, we are living in a fragile world. And so I think more and more we need to be really mindful of the decisions that we're making about what we're doing and the impact, or the positive impact that we could have, and offsetting that against other factors.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Should you travel? Should you fly? Should you drive? Should we be taking far-flung holidays? This I think is different. This is important research, and I really hope that someone, Netflix or Prime or someone, picks it up and makes that film, because it would be fascinating to be able to see it.
Well, we have got an interview with Sky News coming up, so at least there's some interest starting to arrive.
Yeah, that's good for them to see it, isn't it? And will on Wednesday, will the Zoom be recorded?
Yeah.
Good.
So if people miss it, then they can catch up and watch it.
Yeah.
Make sure it's
And
available somewhere.
Also, clips could be taken out to be used on social media and that sort of thing. That's brilliant. Tell us, because the eye in ice is inner gold, and I know gold is a huge thing for you, isn't it? Tell us more about your history with gold.
I didn't really plan on gold being a huge thing, but yes, I began life as well, maybe not began life, but my studies were in geology, and almost by accident, because I actually started studying medicine. I really thought I wanted to be a doctor, and then somehow changed my mind and became a rock doctor and studied gold in the Bolivian Andes. But that gold was completely invisible. It was hidden in the lattice of minerals. So even in the 3 years that I was studying, I never actually saw gold until the final few weeks, when I finally saw a speck of it under a really high-powered microscope. Little did I know that I would become paralysed and then go on to become a Paralympic athlete. So obviously that led to about 13 or 14 years pursuing gold medals. And then a kind of interesting thing happened with the gold medal in Rio. It was the 79th medal for Britain, and this number 79 had kept cropping up all summer. And then I realized that 79 is the atomic number of gold, and it just surrounded me. So it's like my whole life just became, I had filled it with gold in the run up to Rio to try and imagine and visualize and manifest a gold medal, but then it can't continue to keep arriving in this in the form of this number. So I now coach people and speak, and I'm just starting to run some retreats or set some up for next year around finding your inner gold and helping people just connect more with that joy and the flow that we all have inside us when we can enable ourselves to be the best of ourselves and shine more brightly. Than sometimes life circumstances might take that tarnish away and things get a little bit tough.
Yeah, yeah. It's very easy, isn't it, to let small things, especially when there's a number of small things, to pull you down. And really, we have to you sort of rise above and say, stay positive. And obviously the E in ice, the environment, we don't even need to go there really, because we all know how important it is today. And we all need to play our part. There's so much that we can do as individuals to help to protect the environment before it, as you say, it's too late.
I
Tell
suppose
us a
when I
bit.
think about, sorry,
Oh,
to
sorry,
interrupt you, I
carry
suppose
on.
when I think about environment, I'm in respect to the polar possibility, we're thinking obviously about the natural environment and looking after it, but also I think just noticing our local environments, and by that, what is our space like? Who do we surround ourselves with? How much time do we spend connecting with nature? How much of our life is kind of man-made? And those environments just around us can have a huge impact on how we feel and our ability to find that shiny part of ourselves which exists but sometimes gets hidden. So yeah, all kinds of, I think we're talking about environment in all of its facets, if you
Yeah.
like.
Yeah, and that's actually a really good point, isn't it? Because sometimes people can't find their own inner goal because they're surrounded by toxic people. But even there, really, it's within us to be able to move on. Or I remember once hearing a woman on a course say, when someone was talking about being positive, what do you do if the person who is the most toxic in your life is your husband or your partner? And the guy on stage said, change your partner or change your partner. And I just thought it was such a good way of putting it. Try and encourage them to change, or out the door sort of thing.
Well, I suppose when things are difficult around us, it's always an opportunity to look inside ourselves as well. It's very easy for us to make it about the other person. It's just navigating that line, isn't it? About how much can I learn from the situation and grow in the situation, and often it's more about us being brave enough to perhaps challenge someone on their narrative, on their way of being, because we're perhaps afraid of upsetting the peace and harmony. So it's not, I don't think it's always about getting rid of the other person. Sometimes it's just about being brave enough to challenge the status quo and get everybody out of their comfort zone, perhaps,
Yeah,
to see where that goes.
yeah, having those difficult conversations. No, you're right. Do you want to tell us a bit more about the other two people in the team? We've got Mike Webster, who is
Mhm.
your
Mike's our
filmmaker.
filmmaker. Yeah. So Mike it's really interesting because Mike has wanted to do this ever since he heard about it. From the very beginning, he was involved really in quite a voluntary capacity, or at least for almost no money, making some of the stories about people that had done their own Quest 79 challenges, something that got them out of their comfort zone. So Mike was always fascinated in coming to Antarctica, but the challenge for him is he's never ever been on skis until January. He's never been into such an extreme environment as this. And clearly, when you're filming, there's a lot more to manage in terms of equipment and batteries and just attention to a professional job that you're doing rather than just to looking after yourself. So he's got a lot on his plate, but he's trained really hard this winter. He's been training regularly physically, as well as thinking through all of the kit and all of the decisions to make around that. So it's great to have seen him just come from this kind of spark of an idea and this huge desire to making it into a reality. And then Professor Mike, he is a professor of geography at Aberystwyth University. His specialist topic is the value of nature. So he's involved in worldwide panels looking and researching into how we value nature and the importance of it to all kinds of different facets, from our well-being through to mental health, through to economic factors, all kinds of facets of the value in nature. So Mike was a friend of mine from university. I've known him for years, and he actually trained with me 10 years ago for the Polar Possibility when we didn't manage to bring it to fruition. So he's kind of been part of that journey for a long time now, and all of the team are Scottish based, so it's kind of nice that we have that area in common. And yeah, it's going to be a pretty fascinating and special experience to share it together.
Yeah, no, that's amazing, and how lovely that these people, well, especially Mike, has been there through thick and thin. I'll have to get my daughter, who's just graduated in wildlife conservation and is very much into anything to do with the environment. I'll have to get her to register, and I think she'll be at work, but she can watch the replay afterwards.
Oh.
Tell us a little bit about who are your sponsors and what the funds are going to be used for.
Yeah, so Antarctica is not a very easy or cheap place to get to. It's almost impossible, actually. Not impossible, but it's very difficult for anyone to visit Antarctica unless you're with a national science project. So the Antarctic Treaty has existed for, I think it was formed in 1959. I might be wrong on that, but it's a treaty between all the major countries in the world.
Karen, tell us a little bit about the sponsors. Who are they and what are the funds going to be used for?
Well, we're very fortunate to have a few companies on board who've been incredibly supportive of our vision. Our major sponsor is a French company actually called Sinequa. They design software, search engine solutions for businesses, sort of intranet style things to help manage knowledge. So Sinequa have just been fantastic in putting up almost 50% of the funds for our project. And alongside another company who have supported me right through my Paralympic journey called BBraun. So BBraun Medical, they design surgical equipment and lots of things for personal care. So I use quite a lot of their products like catheter, washers, products to help me with my personal care. So yeah, there are two major sponsors. And then we're fortunate to have some others on board who just really have aligned with our vision and that we just think are fantastic. And the funds to get to Antarctica, it's really an expensive place to get to. If you go there on a ship, on a cruise ship to the peninsula, then it's a little bit more affordable, but still expensive. But we're going right into the heart of Antarctica to get to the intersection of 79 and 79. So it's logistically very complex. And if you're not with a national science project, you have to use one of a few Antarctic logistics companies to get there. So that's where most of our funds are going. And if anything is left over, it will be used for the film. And then if anything's left over, we're partnered with a charity in Scotland called the Polar Academy, who help young people believe in themselves and take journeys in polar environments but really they work with kids in schools over a year to help them get access to nature, to develop self-confidence, fitness, team, all these kinds of things to really help young people develop that strength and confidence in themselves. So yeah, we've got quite a few partnerships going on, and it's been really special to travel the journey with all of them.
Yeah, some amazing projects there. Working with teens and self-esteem and that sort of thing is such a key thing today, I think. I hear of them all the time, ones that are really struggling and just need that little bit of help. And I'm sure I've told you before, Arbonne, the company I run my business through, we have our own charitable foundation which helps teens. So amazing, Karen. It just sounds so exciting. I will put lots of links.
I think scared excited is the word that I'm at the moment. There's lots of excitement, but there's also, for me, to be safe in this extreme environment, I have to really take care of a lot of detail, right down to things like the catheters that I use, the model, the kind of material that they're made of, to make sure no joints in the system. Like, it's kind of like having your own plumbing system to manage these things. So I just have to pay a lot of attention to detail that nothing goes wrong, because in that environment, even the smallest thing going wrong could mean a very serious situation. So attention to detail isn't my strong point. So I'm calling on all of my superpowers right now to take care of things that normally I find a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, I never thought about that actually, but you're right. So the fact that you can't feel the temperature of your, especially your legs and your feet, that's a really big thing in being in that sort of environment, isn't it?
Yeah, so my key challenges that the others won't have the same challenge with are, when you're paralyzed, you can't regulate your body temperature. So below my chest level, I can't constrict or dilate my blood vessels. So I'm at risk of hypothermia, at risk of cold injuries, frostbite, and so on, because I can't feel below that level. Also risk of pressure sores. So I've done some work mapping the pressure under my bottom to make sure that I have very special cushions to sit on, which will minimize the pressure on my sit bones. Because in a sit ski and on a bike, the distribution of pressure is quite different being sat in my wheelchair. And then, of course, there's bladder and bowel management in such an extreme environment, which, and because we're in Antarctica and it's a precious place and is protected by the Antarctic Treaty, it means that we'll be carrying out everything with us. So that makes it even more interesting on that front.
Yeah, so you've got a lot more equipment than anyone else will have to take with you, because you've got all the medical stuff that you need as well. Sorry if anyone can hear a dog barking. My dog is determined he wants to get into my office and the door was shut. He wants to join us. He knows Karen, he can probably hear her voice. No, it's all fascinating, and maybe we can get you back on afterwards to tell us how it went. But before you go, just tell us, I know we're running out of time a little bit, but just tell us how you found the training when you were in Norway.
Well, I'm pleased to say that we had a meeting with the Antarctic logistics company. We arranged everything through just a few evenings ago, and they've promised that they don't think it will be as cold as it was in a Norwegian winter. So this winter training in Norway, we were really high up on a plateau called the Hardangervidda Plateau. We had 3 training trips there, and at one point it was around -30, and that was without the wind chill. So really dark, really cold, and to be honest, I remember just shivering in my sleeping bag thinking, oh my goodness, what have I let myself in for here? And so I think being an Antarctic summer when we're there, hopefully it might not be quite as cold, at least not in the tents, because it'll be 24-hour daylight and sunshine on there. So hopefully our training may have been the hardest bit. I mean, we were really putting in at least 20 kilometers a day over really tough terrain, and on a huge steep learning curve with Mike. So yeah, hopefully the real thing might not be quite as difficult, but we'll reserve judgment and see how it goes.
That's fantastic. Oh, I shall keep my fingers crossed that they have a good summer there, which I know they probably don't want too good a summer there, but just for that few weeks, so that it's not too cold. Karen, thank you so much for joining us today. I will post all the links and the details in the show notes. And please come back on after the expedition and tell us all about it.
Thanks, Jill. I look forward to it.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks so much for listening to this week's show. Check out all the links to the resources mentioned in today's episode and all my freebies in the show notes. See you next time.